Hey, nice to see everybody here. I have posted a link to the agenda in the Slack chat. If you could go there and just add your name to April 7th. It's always helpful to know who was here chatting with us today. Ingrong, I see you're on. Would you be up for taking notes today?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Porter Community Dev Meeting. I'm Carolyn Van Slyke. This is April 7th, 2022. And yeah, like I said, just add your name here. Please, would be super helpful. If there's anything you want to talk about, by the way, you can always just add it to this agenda. This is the shortly link, porter.sh/dev meeting. So if there's anything you want to chat about, anybody can just add something here and we'll talk about it at the next meeting. Just a reminder that this is a recorded meeting and this will be posted on YouTube once we're done here today. Cool, let's get started. The biggest thing going on right now is that we're far enough along. I mean, we better be. We're at alpha 18, right? It's been a while. We're far enough along that we're ready to start, almost ready to start supporting migrating data off of v0.38 and onto the new 1.0 format. And then going forward, you should be able to use the Porter, the latest release of Porter, and we're not going to change the data format out underneath you, or if we do, we'll migrate your data. So it's going to be safe to start using soon. We haven't added the migration yet though, so just keep an eye out for it. When we do add it, we're going to bump Porter's release from alpha to beta. So it'll be really clear, hopefully clear as mud, that we're kind of moving into a new stage for what we support and what's kind of happening with the pre-release. I have some details here on what the migration is going to look like in case anyone's interested. So the first version that we're going to start supporting migration will be beta 1. So there may be some more alphas in between, but once we hit beta 1, that's the one where you'll be able to use data migration, and we'll support your data all the way through to the final 1.0 release. What the process is going to look like is that you'll install beta 1, okay? And if you have old plugins, like maybe you're using Azure Table Storage plugin, for example, keep that there. Keep it on a version that works with that you were just using, right? Don't upgrade your plugin just yet. And in 1.0, we aren't using things like Azure Storage anymore for data. Instead, we're storing everything in MongoDB. So what you'll want to do is add an entry to your config file that points to a Mongo database, okay? So this is what it would end up looking like, is your new default storage would be pointing to a Mongo database, and you'd still have your old, say your Azure Table or Azure Blob, still be set up in here because we need to be able to migrate the data out. So we need to know about it still for a bit. And then you'll add an entry for whatever your Mongo database is. And then you'll run Porter storage migrate. You'll say where the old data was and where you want the new data to go. And Porter will handle reading in on the old data, updating it to the new format, and then saving it in the database for you. And at that point, then you would update plugins and everything to the most recent version supported by 1.0. You just need to keep the plugins around for just a little bit so we can get the data out. Are there any questions about this migration process? Any concerns? Okay, well, we'll see how it goes. This isn't implemented yet. We are waiting for one final pull request to go through. And then we'll be ready to do this. But I just want to give people a heads up, a little bit of lead time of what it's going to look like. So let's talk a little bit about what alpha means, beta means, and release candidate real quick. For us, alpha was we weren't going to support data migrations, right? We needed an opportunity to kind of let things settle, make sure everything was working first before we committed to supporting between releases of Porter, supporting your data. Once we're into beta, that's when the data support happens. When we are done making changes and we're like, we think this is what we're going to ship, we'll cut a release candidate. In an ideal world where everything goes amazing, there's just one release candidate. We try it out for a while. Everyone gets a chance to really kick the tires. And if it goes well, then that's what we're just going to retag it as 1.0 and be done with it. But otherwise, if we find things, there'll be a release candidate too, and so on. Really hope we don't have to drag that process out, but we're getting close. If we check out our 1.0 milestone, and we go here. Let's go to our milestones. We have our 1.0. A lot of these are either in progress or there's smaller bugs and things that we want to check and make sure there isn't a problem before we hit 1.0. So the list is getting pretty short. Most of these aren't big features. This is the big one that we're waiting for that's going to change Porter's data storage format a little bit. And then the other largest, most disruptive thing is we're going to change the template delimiters on Porter. What we use right now isn't easy to use with YAML, and we're going to switch to, instead of double curly brace, it'll be $sign curly brace. And this will relieve some of our quoting problems in Porter. But we're going to kind of help with that migration so that you don't have to rewrite everything immediately. It just will support both for a bit, and then at 1.0, it'll just be the new format with $sign curly brace. But other than that, it's just kind of like a long tail of little things. Not all of these may make it in. We may evaluate some of these and realize they're not actually a bug still. They haven't all been fully vetted at this point. Or we haven't reproduced them. So like there's some like this that may or may not still reproduce at this point. So we'll try to figure that out. But most of the big stuff is behind us. Are there any questions on our pre-release process and kind of plans for the next couple months? I'm not going to commit to a time. Love to have this happen soon. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about the latest release that just came out. Like I said, Porter is now a legal adult in the United States and is at Alpha 18. And so one of the nice features that just came out is, we've always used Docker to build the installer essentially for your bundle. And we haven't always taken advantage of every single Docker feature that would be incredibly useful. Hopefully I've done a sweep and gotten all the last little things we need. So for example, if you have a proxy, like a corporate proxy you're behind, either in your CI environment or your local dev machine, and you're trying to do builds and are having trouble accessing things because of the lack of proxy support, that should be fixed. So if you have a proxy configured in your Docker client, Porter Alpha 18 should respect that and use it and go through the proxy. I personally do not have a corporate proxy. So if someone has one and wants to test that out and let me know if there's any weirdness, that would be great. But I think it should work just the same as like running Docker build directly. We now have support for build arguments. So in your Docker file, if you're using a custom Docker file, you'll be able to define build args and use them to kind of customize what you're doing. If you're trying to parameterize your builds, things like that, maybe pulling in a specific version of tools, your application, whatever it happens to be, you'll be able to pass that in during build now. So you'll be able to say Porter build, as many build args as you need, and that'll be provided to your Docker file. This I'm really excited about. It's always been super awkward to try to reference private resources. Source codes are in private repositories. You can only download things from maybe something that requires authentication. You'd like it in the bundle, but you don't want, obviously, the credentials that you use to get it in the bundle. So we now support the -- secret, where you can mount a secret from your local host into the image temporarily while you're building in order to, pull a private repo or use SSH to do a Git clone and things like that. You still need to make sure that you're not leaving sensitive data around, so like follow all the standard best practices that come from Docker on how to, safely manage these connections and kind of cleaning things up and hoping that they don't end up in one of the layers. But basically, these are all just like standard Docker build flags that we're just going to start supporting going forward. If there was like a core Docker feature that you still need, let us know. There's still time to get it in. Okay. In addition to this, let me go back to Porter's code here real quick. Here's some performance improvements in how we build your bundle that should help it go faster and cache a lot more. So if we go in here, let's just look at like the new template. I think that'll be helpful. All right, so if we look at like, this is the standard Docker file that Porter uses if you didn't make a custom one. This is what Porter's going to bust out. And this is what I'm referring to. This may or may not be familiar to you. There's the normal Docker file syntax, which has from, run, copy, fun stuff like that. But Docker has a way to extend it and add support for new Docker file language features. And you do that by declaring a syntax. Starting with 18, alpha 18, we always declare a syntax. Even if you have a custom one and you don't declare something, we're going to add this on so that we can support a couple extra features. And this is kind of what is going to help us improve performance a lot. So one, for example, is that we can have a cache layer and we can mount it up and use it for things like apt-get update, which slows down builds quite a bit whenever something like this gets changed. In addition, we're taking advantage of the length flag for copy, so that when we're copying your bundles files, like any files that are in there next to porter.yaml, when we copy it in, we're going to use link. What that means is that, say, for example, you had a big file in your bundle that you were including, right? And as long as the cache wasn't invalidated for that image layer, oh, you're great. You know, the Porter build went pretty fast. But every time, say, for example, one of the mixins changed its output, it would invalidate the cache for line 12 here for the copy. By using link, you're able to separate kind of some of the dependencies between successive layers in the image. And even if something changes here in the mix-in lines that we inject, you're still going to be able to take advantage of layer caching for your step here when you copy your source. So even if we tweak stuff, you're still going to be able to use cache unless your file's actually changed, which is a really, really cool feature that was just added in 2022. So you can take advantage of that too. If you want to use a newer one, if say, you know, 1.5 comes out a month from now or whatever, you should be able to just edit your custom Docker file and immediately start using those features. It's not really, it's not tied to anything in Porter's build. Are there any thoughts or questions about that?
Hey, Carolyn, this is Krishna. Quick question.
Yeah.
So, do we have any plans to support daemonless builds, like, you know, there is Google's Canico and things like that? Or do you see any issue if we try to use that right now?
It definitely won't work right now. We use Docker and BuildX under the hood to do our builds. We're not, you know, calling out to binaries or things like that. This is functionality built into Porter. If we wanted to do something like that, it would be a, you know, a feature we'd have to look at, and it would, for example, would be a new build driver. So we do have a way to support something side by side, but that would be something we'd look to the community to kind of investigate and see if it's feasible and contribute it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's one of our you know, quote unquote requirements is, you know, we need to be able to build these packages or bundles inside a container. So yeah, I mean, we'll get back to you. We'll take a look at that.
Yeah, there's definitely a path if we want to support it. I guess that's the message I'm trying to get across. But you know, out of the box, the way Porter works right now, it does require either a local Docker or a remote Docker daemon to link against. You know, using standard, I think it's like Docker host environment variables, things like that. We'll pick up on and use that. We could then build with a remote Docker host if need be too.
Sounds good.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, a couple things that were put on the agenda. does anyone know who added this
Yep.
one so we can chat about it?
That's
Is it
me.
you? Okay,
That's me
great.
too,
Yeah,
yeah.
let's talk about it.
Yeah, so there was some conversation here already. You posted some steps and instructions on how to do this. But again, this kind of comes back to what we are trying to do. We are trying to do all this from inside a container running on Kubernetes. So really just wanted to get a sense of what the technical challenges are to be able to kind of, include, let's say, a layer, a blob essentially, that can be whatever, right? I mean, logos, whatever else we want to kind of dump in there. And then have either porter support or directly just pull that layer out. So we just trying to figure out whether this is like a porter side of a problem or is it really CNAB side of implementation issue. Just want to get a sense of where the complications are if you want to do that.
Yeah. So just for everyone else, I want to catch people up. The hope is that someone could add assets to a bundle, okay, and then be able to use, ideally Porter, right, to be able to get those files out of the bundle, not while you're running the bundle, but just maybe there's something super useful in there. There's a jar file that you want to be able to use. You don't really want to install the bundle. You just want to take the files out of the bundle. Correct me if I'm not summarizing that right.
That's accurate, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I have always wanted a command in Porter, similar to explain, that would just allow you to target files that are in there, or just list what assets are in the bundle directory, and be able to pull them out. In my comment here, I had it kind of laid out like how this would work without Porter doing it for you, so that you could have something that would like work today if you wanted to try it. It's not terribly straightforward. This is just how you get things out of Docker images in general, right? I'm not aware of anything that kind of helps you do this without creating a container so that you can use CP, but I haven't, investigated this fully. I would love to just see, though, Porter do this for you. I don't know how that would work, though, in your situation, because you are running already in a container.
So we have tools like Scopio, right? I mean, Red Hat Scopio that can pull out a single layer, a blob. I mean, what we are really trying to do is, avoid downloading the entire invocation image just to get to a certain set of files, right? So if, for example, theory at least goes, if we can package this as a separate quote-unquote container with just a single layer, and we just refer it to by a digest, right? And it's all part of the CNAB package. I mean, that's what happens today, kind of anyway. So the, all the layers, all the blobs get packaged as a thick bundle. They're all part of the CNAB bundle, right? This is just one more thing on top that we add. And if we can refer to it either as a custom variable or some, metadata importer explain that says, this is where your, those extra bits are. We can use tools like Scopio and things to just get that one blob out, and then extract it and do whatever else we can do with that.
Oh, you literally
That's
want, that you put it into a layer. You're just trying to find a way to identify which layer it is in the manifest so that you can grab it.
So right now, I don't think Porter even lets us put it in a separate layer. So we need to even build that, looks like, unless I'm missing something there. But yeah, it has to start from all the way there.
If you write your own Docker file, you can organize your layers however you want. We don't squash layers or anything like that. It just, if you put it on a separate line, you don't chain run commands together or, copies, it'll land on its own layer.
Yeah, right. If it is
the trick is identifying it.
Yeah, that's one part of the problem, definitely. But if you make it part of a container, right, of image, so there will be layers below it, right? I mean, as soon as you do a from, there are a bunch of layers below that. So yeah, we want to even avoid that, right? We can make this a completely independent blob, separate from the invocation image entirely. Again, this is all theoretical, right? We haven't really figured out, a way to do it. And I'm just trying to bring it up and see, what you think about, what your opinions are.
Isn't the challenge to get like a Docker pull, but just with one asset rather than pulling the whole image? I mean,
Essentially,
that's
yeah.
essentially what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, if you squash the entire image, then that's exactly what a Docker pull would do, right? Or scope your copy. If you squashed it, manage to squash it, it'll just pull one big blob, and that's what you're right. But for other reasons, we don't want to actually squash the entire invocation image itself.
Yeah. And just to let you know, what we're doing right now to work around this is base64 encoding those assets into custom properties. So they're part of the manifest, they're part of the bundle, which obviously you can grab, you can pull that individually. And then we uncode those blobs, but want to make it a little bit more general and handle larger files.
So on the same note, go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, to give you some guidance on, like, as you investigate this and kind of look at where would the change need to be made. As I said, Porter, if you want to be able to essentially extract files, not layers, files out of the invocation image, that would be like a very welcome pull request. If you want to have more control over the actual layers and, for example, how the OCI manifest is represented, so you could just identify a layer and then pull that directly, that would be a CNAB change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if this is related, but I should have created an issue for this. There currently appears to be no way to get Porter to extract the custom properties from a bundle.
That's right. We don't show that at the moment. I think that would be nice to be able to add that type of stuff. If we wanted to, it would be on the inspect command. If we wanted to do that, because we do have all that information.
Okay.
It's just a matter of showing it somewhere, or outputting it to JSON from that command.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the same this topic, so currently can we do multiple invocation images, and how would that generally work?
What were you hoping to accomplish with multiple invocation images?
Again, yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the same thing. If we can just have one additional invocation image that we use to package all these assets, and again, yeah, this is just a thought, right? I mean, I don't know, I don't have a full design or anything yet. If we can package them, we have a list of invocation images, and at that point, maybe we can do something with that information.
So the CNAB spec does support and allow for defining multiple invocation images, right? If you look at the bundle.json, you'll see that it's an array. Porter doesn't support it whatsoever. We don't really have a workflow of, like, what task is the user trying to do that would require more than one. You're talking about, it sounds like shipping assets. It's not clear to me what you want to have happen with those assets when you run the bundle. Do you literally want to pick between two invocation images, or are you saying you want to bring along a data image and provide it?
I think it is a data image.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It is a data image essentially. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
And
that's really interesting. I think if you were going to investigate it further, I would look at referenced images. There's an images section in the porter.yaml where you can reference another Docker image, and that will be shipped around and distributed along with the bundle, right? What we don't have at the moment is a way for you to load that into the running bundle, right? When we create a container from the invocation image and run it, referenced images are not mounted or anything like that. but that's kind of interesting, and I'd be happy to talk about that further if that's
Okay.
something you were interested in looking at. When it comes to the actual invocation image, their purpose that's encoded in the CNAB spec is that it's the logical entry point for where do I find the install action, the upgrade action, and then that's the entry point. That's what we're running. So providing multiple invocation images isn't for shipping data, it's for providing alternative logic that we want to execute, maybe because one's for Windows. This was kind of before multi-arch was a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe look at using reference images, and we can talk further about how to mount that into the container so you can access it during install. Yeah.
Actually, for now, I mean, this actually reference image sounds, something that we could use. So I think on use case point of view, right, it's less of what the invocation image sees, more of exactly what the user gets to see, right? I mean, essentially, when somebody imports an app, quote unquote, we want to show them, a tile with the logo, and we want to give them some useful information about what this app is, what the licensing structure, things like that, right? Those are the assets we're really talking about here. So I don't think those need to be provided to the invocation image in any way. It's really, as long as we can surface it somehow.
I really like Jeremy's suggestion for you then. If these are small enough bits of data, I would really look at encoding it in custom metadata, so it's just available on the bundle JSON, so that as you're rendering bundles on a website, you could just read that data, properly encode it and then display it as images and text on your web page.
Yeah, unfortunately, what we run it up against is there is a limit on how much the size of the object in etcd. Yeah, I mean, especially if we do logos, right? And if you want to do, themed logos and things like that, that quickly grows quite a bit. That's what we're trying to work around.
Now that I understand what you're doing, I think a referenced image will get you what you need if you are capable of pulling the referenced image, to get the data out of it. And it's essentially just additional storage for the bundle JSON at that point. But if you don't need it in the invocation image, that I think you have everything you need to make that work.
Awesome. Okay, that's really good to know. Yeah, and we can pull that image. Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
This is really good information. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. No, this is great. I'm glad we're able to come up with something here. All right. Are we cool with moving on to credential sets and parameter sets in the Porter operator?
Good.
Sounds like yes. Okay. Oops. Jerry, I don't know, you added this. Do you want to just chat about what the next steps are?
Yeah, I basically just kind of do a quick brainstorm on what you might want this to look like, because we're getting ready to start working on this and implementing these CRDs. So, from an API perspective, is there any gotchas that we should consider? What's a overall design that we want to move forward to implement this?
I'm sorry, I called you Jeremy. I apologize.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't even listening.
Okay. Yeah. So the kind of general overview of what we want to be able to do is, add a new resource, one for parameter set, one for credential set, that'll essentially look exactly like it does in Porter, right? But it'll be a Kubernetes resource. And then it'll look very similar to the installation controller. It will watch those resources, and then it will create an agent action with the appropriate Porter command. In this case, the Porter command would be Porter credential apply or Porter parameter set apply, and then be able to pass that in. I think everything that needs to happen to make that work, you can repurpose from the installation controller.
Okay. I feel like I might need to just start digging into the installation controller code a little bit more and maybe
Yeah.
throw up a POC or a whip for this and just get some feedback on it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, if you were asking me to implement it, I would literally copy and paste the installation controller and just start renaming installation to credential and do another same one for parameter set.
Yep.
And just have them be two separate reconcilers or controllers. Reference them in the main function so that we pull them in and we actually execute the reconcilers.
Right.
Yeah, and then just copy paste like a mad woman, I think, to implement it, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's at that state. If you run into something where it isn't and you find like I need more changes to the agent action, like definitely let me know, because I was hoping we were to the point where it was kind of just like a reusable building block, so to speak, that we could build the other resources on top of.
Now, is there anything, because currently the types of credential sets we support are secret, value, environment, and file, right?
Yeah, I think we may need to rethink what that list is inside of Kubernetes.
Yes, that was what I was thinking.
Yeah. Because I really think secret and hard-coded value are the only two reasonable.
Those are the only.
Yeah.
No, okay, so secret and hard-coded value, but those we could reference. That means we may not have as much flexibility if we're trying to bring in some specific file, right?
Yeah. I mean, what we could do, I mean, because it's literally up to the plugin what keys they want to support, right? So for example, the local host plugin doesn't even understand what secret is, okay? But the Kubernetes plugin understands secret. The Kubernetes plugin could also understand config map, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We could start linking to, Kubernetes native concepts.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know we're going to need to have. I think we ran into this before where everything was, encoded as a value inside of a secret, and that's not quite as flexible enough for certain things. And like if we need to have a G-Cloud account JSON, that might not work out well if we're just encoding everything as Kubernetes secrets. So potentially, I'll have to play around with that. But yeah, I like the adding in maybe the config map into the plugin. That would really increase flexibility.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the one I would be unsure about how well it would work would be volumes. I think that may increase the complexity of what the plugin would have to do infrastructure wise to get at that data. But config map would be pretty straightforward because you already kind of have that for secret.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brian, you have any thoughts on that? Not sure if he's.
No, thanks. I'm driving to the dentist.
Oh no.
Okay.
All
right. Well, I think that gets us enough to kind of get started on this, and we'll probably send out a whip here and get some feedback on that from everyone.
Okay. Yeah, and I know you were waiting for reviews, by the way, for a couple things. I don't know if anyone heard, but I decided to replace my computer in the middle of the work week, which wasn't my best move. So I'm just now able to start reviewing the Kubernetes plugin again, and we should be able to have that finished by the end of the day, just so you know.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's kind of our main focus today and tomorrow is just getting that through review.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, sounds good. Oh, and that's the other thing is I don't think I'm the only one who saw that Apple announcement and then bought an M1. Porter currently doesn't build on M1, neither does the operator. And Porter itself acts a little funky on M1, so that should be fixed probably in a release next week, just so people are aware. Because I think Don was another person who just bought a new computer and is suddenly going, nothing works. So yeah. Okay, cool. Are there any other things people want to chat about before we call it a day? I would like to call it a day at 10:30. That'd be awesome. No, all right, great. Thanks. I appreciate everyone coming and participating here. And as always, if you have something that you want to add to the agenda, everyone's welcome. Anyone can edit this file. And we'll be happy to talk about it whenever. All right, thanks everyone. See you online.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks, everyone.